Hi, this is John with The Evolving World. Today I'm doing an updated video on a wheel and tire package that I did on my Chevy Bolt. This is the 18-month review. So we started the upgrade back in about 18 months ago. It was at 60,858 miles. It is now 84,382 miles. So we put on about 23,500 miles. First I'm going to start off by showing you what the current tread wear is at. We started at 1030 seconds, so right now the front is at 630 seconds, and then the rear is at about 930 seconds. So I have basically 9 points I want to make here. 4 of them are positive, 4 of them are kind of subjectively neutral, and then 1 of them is negative. So I'm going to go ahead and start out with the negative one. Basically the only thing I found as a problem was the tire grip on acceleration. Being a 205/60, it's only 8.1 inches wide compared to the factory stock being 8.5 inches. And I know it doesn't sound like a lot, 0.4 inches, but it's enough to be a noticeable difference on acceleration. I mean, unless you're rolling at 20 miles an hour, if you mash the throttle, the tires are going to spin. You have to be very, very delicate with the pedal off the line. So there's 4 other things I'd like to point out. So tire wheel offset is not perfect on this car. It's very close. But I would say that if you can get it perfect, it would be better. Basically, the factory offset is what you want to go for. Second point I want to make is that how much difference did it make on the range? It made absolutely 0 difference on the range. I mean, absolutely 0. I mean, nothing. Some of the factor might be the wheel design is different. The offset's a little bit different. The tires are different, totally different. So they have more rolling resistance. So I think all of those factors combined, no matter how skinnier it is, it didn't make any difference here. Third thing I noticed is cornering is a little bit worse than it was before. Not very much. There's just a tiny little bit. And that's only at the limit when you're like doing canyon carving kind of stuff, or if you're on the track. Not that I go on the track, but if you were to drive like really super aggressive around S-curves or, really hairpin turns and stuff like that, there's definitely a little bit more roll on the tire as expected because it is a higher profile tire, but nothing that's really crazy. I mean, it's still perfectly acceptable. Fourth point I want to make is coasting regen is noticeably higher. I noticed this very early on. As soon as I take my foot off the pedal, the thing wants to come to a stop a lot quicker. The neutral braking. And I think that's attributed primarily to just rolling resistance, since the tires do have higher rolling resistance. And now on to the good things. Okay, 4 points I want to make here. So the ride is improved, but only slightly. It's nothing dramatically better. The rear shocks that I upgraded were far more effective. If you want to improve your ride, definitely do the shock upgrade. But the ride was just very, very slight. I mean, hardly even noticeable, really. And then the handling on the rough roads seems better. Like, it just seems to be like when you hit those potholes, and if really choppy, dripped up road, it seems to handle a little bit better, a little bit safer going around the corners. And I think that's just because the lighter wheels are just faster reacting. And then the third thing is kind of a subjective thing. If you have lighter wheels and tires, you should get a slight increase in power off the line. So a little bit of performance, but once again, it's such a tiny, tiny, tiny little amount. I didn't notice anything different. I would say it was completely unnoticeable. And then the last thing I want to mention is that the wet and snow traction is improved. And that's primarily because you got a skinnier tire. It's perfect for like a winter setup. It's perfect for if you have a second set of wheels and tires. So other things to mention, the rolling resistance is higher, as I mentioned before. That's just a general thing. I don't know how much it affected this whole test here, but I think it was a factor. Another thing to point out is that the wheel shape is different, on this wheel setup. A little bit more protruding out, so I don't know how much that affects the aero at 60 miles an hour, especially if you have a crosswind. I mean, it might be a slight little bit of a factor. If I knew what I knew now, back then, would I do anything differently? Yes and no. Instead of doing 205/60, I would do 215/55, because that would be the stock factory width of 8.5 inches. And I think that little bit of difference right there would be enough to cure us the one problem that we're having with the tire grip on acceleration. It would probably help out on cornering too. I don't think it would make any difference to the range, and if so, it would be probably something tiny, not even noticeable, based off the experience that I have here. So yeah, if I had to do it all over again, that's the only change I would make. And lastly, I think when it comes time to replace the tires, I'm actually going to do 225/55, increase the wheel width to 8.9 inches, because I think that would be good for handling, possibly for ride even. It's definitely going to have excellent traction and grip off acceleration. So anyway, that's going to do it for this episode. I hope you guys enjoyed it. Please like and subscribe if you did. Many more videos to come.